get the race underway. Ian Logie does go for the pit lane, but it is going to be Tom Roach that leads the pack up towards Ritchie's for the first time. Hugo Cook there in second place. It was very tight for third though, wasn't it, as James Wallace was trying to sneak up the inside, but the door was closing and I think James backed out of it in the end. But it's going to be Tom Roach that leads the way from Hugo Cook in second place, James Wallace in third, and it is going to be Darren Leung in the BMW that's there in fourth, but they're all safely through the first couple of corners.
Yeah, Cook going well around the outside of the first corner. Of course, he was chopped the nose off almost of the driver right beside him, but no, good move. Everyone clean so far. Loggie's back out on the road, so whatever issue he had has hopefully been rectified.
Yeah, it was a very quick call into the pits for Ian Logie, so we'll have to make some further investigations as to was that planned just to stay out of trouble as he's not in for the full season, Ian, or was there an issue with the car and it was a case of alt control and delete? We'll have to wait and see on that one. So Tom Roach leading the way. We'll pick up on the early group leaders as well, and already Tom Roach starting to pull away from Hugo Cook, who is dropping ever more into the clutches of James Wallace in the early stages. So it's McLaren from Audi, from Mercedes, from BMW, from McLaren is the top order at the moment. So going to show that the balance of performance does work, because we've got lots of different marques represented at the sharp end.
Yeah, very much so. It's good to see so many different cars represented in the top 5 positions and also driving well. You mentioned that James Wallace was is looking for a position gain there. He was pretty feisty on the grid. He was saying that he wanted to move up, and he reckons that he can overtake around here, as we're seeing the cars wiggle their way through Nelson on the exit on the first lap. Potentially not all tyres completely up to racing temperature yet.
No, I was looking for who was leading Group GTC. It looks like that's Charlotte Gilbert. Leading Group GTH was the car that qualified on pole, Chris Hart. But over the start-finish line go the overall leaders and the leader of Group GT3. So Tom Roach leading the way as they go through and over the start-finish line. Hugo Cook in second place, and third at the moment is James Wallace sitting there in third. There goes Patrick Collins. So Patrick Collins at the wheel of the Porsche going well. And towards us now, that's the lead battle in Group GTH. The Mercedes has managed to get away a little bit, and it is going to be the Aston Martin of James Guest that's up to second in Group GTH at the moment, and is actually pulling away from John Curry's car. So they are 12th, 13th and 14th places overall. But for James Guest at the wheel of the number 82 Aston Martin, was chatting to him and the car that he shares with Tom Canning, and they did say their car is quick through the fast corners, so the final sector of the lap is where the Aston Martin really is absolutely on it.
It's one of the great things about multi-class and different manufacturer racing is that you do get all of these cars achieving a very similar lap time in such a different way, and we've seen over the previous few rounds that potentially that Mercedes AMG GT4 is very fast in a straight line, and it's but then potentially hampered a little bit in the corners compared to, as you mentioned, the Aston Martin, which in those faster corners, especially at the hands of James Guest and Tom Canning, is a formidable machine, and clearly showing that so far, being right up there in the Group GTH fight.
Yep, but they're all queuing up behind, aren't they? So James Guest has got his hands rather full because John Curry is right behind him. John Curry has got then Philip Carter at the wheel of the McLaren not too far away. They've got the Group GTO BMW of Chris Murphy beginning to close in as well. One of the oldest cars in the field, Chris Murphy. Car runs in Group GTO. It's fair to say Chris is a brilliant driver, but the car is a bit outgunned in Group GTO compared to the other things that he's up against. But he's out for fun. That's what he's doing. He's enjoying his racing, Chris. And I was chatting to him at the previous round that we had at Brands Hatch, and he's saying, doesn't matter, as long as I've got cars around me to race with, that's what I want. I'm not bothered where I am in my group. I just want to go out there and have some hard fought and some clean racing. Yeah,
and it's great to see that the GT Cup, of course, caters for that as well, and it's great to see that car out there, because potentially that car might not have a race to be in if it wasn't for the GT Cup, and it's an excellent car. It sounds great, it looks great, and if the driver's enjoying themselves, then hey, what's not to like?
Absolutely, and he's a proper enthusiast, is Chris, compared to things like the newer BMW heading down towards Agostini now. Now, last time through, Hugo Cook popped in the fastest lap of the race. It is the first flying lap that he'd done, 1 minute 46.249 from Hugo Cook. He's still a second adrift of Tom Roach, the Welshman, who leads the way for Orange Racing powered by JMH and their McLaren 720S GT3 at the moment. Hugo Cook will look to try and close in a little bit more, but I think the first sector for the McLaren on this lap is slightly quicker than the Audi, so the lead advantage has just stretched again. It was hovering around a second. It was 1.015 of a second between first and second. Then we've got the car of James Wallace, a similar gap back actually, about a second back in third place. And Darren Young at the wheel of the Century Motorsport BMW, a car that won the Intelligent Money British GT 3-hour race at Silverstone, sitting there in fourth place at the moment. There goes the BMW through shot there, and over the mud that's just been deposited because of someone running wide on the track limits.
Yeah, James Wallace just dropping off the back of the curb, then throwing some dust up. The track exterior is getting very dry and dusty here at Snetterton. We haven't had a huge amount of rain in the southeast for a while, and with the lovely weather we've been having, everything's very dry, but also noticing that there's a fight now again for the second place in Group GTH. But have you seen, Mark, that there's been a bulletin that was released to all of the drivers about a week ago about this slight updates to the track limits regulations?
Yeah, I alluded to them when we were covering a support race earlier on. So yeah, the new track limits are things that everybody's going to have to re-educate themselves towards, and it is a fine margin really. The track limit now is the contact patch is the tyre in reality, and the contact patch cannot go beyond the white line where there's a white line painted around the circuit, or the curb line where there is a curb. Now when I say the curb, I mean the red and white bit, not the green bit that's painted thereafter. But yeah, even if it's a millimetre of the tyre goes beyond that, then in theory it's a track limit warning, isn't it?
Yes, and that's a slight change to the regulations as it was before. It was the inside of the tyre that wasn't allowed to leave the edge of the white line or the curb. So a very small but important difference, and some of the drivers getting caught out with that in qualifying.
Yeah, it's a relearning process and a re-educating process, and it will, you've raced cars, Piers, as well, it will affect your braking point, your apex point, your exit point. Not by much, but when we're talking fine margins anyway in racing, that change will affect it.
Very much fine margins, and it is a fine margin difference. It's only a tyre width here and there, which doesn't sound like a huge amount, but your reference points where you're looking and how your brain sort of looks at a corner and goes, I can get on the power now to go exit and just stay on the curb, well, you have to have all of your tyre on the curb now, and the way you feel it as well. Previously you might think, right, in practice, if I feel the curb rumble stop, then my inside of my tyre just dropped off the back of the curb. That's how far I can go. Whereas now, you have to know where the edge of your tyre is, which you can't feel so much in a tactile way through the steering or the suspension.
And particularly on a big GT car, where the width of your rear tyre is probably
2 feet.
2 feet 60 centimetres, something like that. So that's the difference. You've now got 60 centimetres less of arc to be able to use in a corner. Brilliant fight still going on for second, for third, for fourth in Group GTH. James Guesser's got his hands full here because he's got John Curry right behind him. Then we've got Philip Carter at the wheel of the Greystone McLaren, who a lap or two ago got through and ahead of Chris Murphy's BMW. So we've got the three cars in Group GTH fighting over second, third and fourth overall, and all of this is playing beautifully into the hands of the Group GTH leader, Chris Hart, because the number 69 car is up the road and gone now in the lead of the group by about 5.5 seconds.
Yeah, it's a great start to the race for Chris Hart in that Make Happen Racing AMG GT4, because those AMGs have been very fast so far, and he's making use of the pace that he's got in that car and just pulling away from the rest of the field. But there's a great fight still going on for second, third, fourth, and then of course the Group GTO car as well.
Yeah, Chris Murphy will be enjoying this. So back to the race leader. Now the lead advantage was 1.6 seconds there or thereabouts between Tom Roach and Hugo Cook. Now this time through, Tom Roach has gone through the middle part of the lap quicker than anybody has gone so far. There's the track limit there. There was some of the tyre that was beyond that red and white painted curb there for Tom Roach. So in reality that would have been an infringement on the track limit rules.
Yes, technically the difference was the difference with the first and the second car that went through. The Tom Roach at the front of the field just dropped the edge of his tyre past the curb, and again in the bulletin they said that doesn't guarantee that every infringement will be penalised, because there's no way that every single car and every single corner of each lap of each car can be monitored closely.
No.
However, the race directors and stewards will be monitoring specific areas where again an advantage can definitely be gained, where they also can more effectively penalise drivers that have been abusing track limits.
Yeah, and if you're a smart driver, you look for where the marshals' posts are and where they're positioned, and have an idea whether they can actually see whether you're infringing on the exit of that corner. And if you think they can't, that's where you push it a bit more. It's a competitive environment. That's what I'd be doing for sure.
Exactly.
Fastest lap of the race last time through for Tom Roach, 1 minute 45.790, increases his lead margin to just over 2 seconds between himself and the Audi of Hugo Cook. There's the BMW of Darren Young, still running well in 4th place, partnered up with Jesse Krohn, Works BMW driver for this weekend. Now, Darren Young has been racing this car in British GT with factory driver Dan Harper. You would expect Dan Harper to have raced with him this weekend, but Dan Harper, being a busy pro, is away racing in the GT World Challenge Europe this weekend, so that's why Jesse Krohn has jumped into his seat.
Yeah, Jesse Krohn, of course, a very decorated GT driver in his own right. Dan Harper, a young Works BMW driver. Jesse has got a wealth of experience in GT3 machinery and other GT machinery as well, and he's doing very well. And that's a move at the back of the field. It
is. That's Ian Loggy carving his way through, goes through and ahead of Matty Evans. So Matty Evans, who is hoping to try and keep up what's been a good run so far this season with him. The car's only had 2 group wins, the light blue Lamborghini, but it's been consistent. So that light blue Lamborghini is lying 2nd overall in the championship at the moment. It leads the Group GTC championship, but is 2nd overall across all of the groups. So at the moment it is running, I think 3rd is it in Group GTC, yeah, because it's still being led by Charlotte Gilbert, doing a brilliant job again as ever. Now she's got fully used to this Lamborghini, having raced it last year for the first time. Patrick Collins is 2nd in Group GTC at the wheel of the Porsche. He's having a really good run, and yeah, Matty Evans in the Liquid Moly back car is sitting there 3rd. He's got the British GT champion Ian Loggy ahead of him, who again slow out of that corner. That car's running in Group GTO. All is not well with that McLaren, is it?
No, it doesn't seem like everything's quite right. It looked like he's visibly slow through the bomb hole and now going around Coram. So don't know if something's going on with that car that maybe we are unaware of. It's clearly not hampered enough for him to feel like he needs to come in the pits just yet. No, he's gone past another time, so must be nursing some sort of issue, because Ian Loggy, as we know, previous champion in another series, he is no slouch whatsoever, and that McLaren 720S is also a very fast car.
Yeah, so really strange. It was just that corner, wasn't it? He was really slow through the bomb hole and up towards Coram, and it almost surprised Matty Evans as to how slow that car was going. Get to the next corner and it's away and gone by the look of things. Right, Chris Murphy is the interloper amongst the Group GTH cars again now, because he did have the light green and black McLaren ahead of him. Well, now all of a sudden it looks as though that car is back behind, and now Chris Murphy at the wheel of the BMW is nipping at the heels of John Curry's Make Happen Racing Mercedes. So they head round through Ritchie's corner with 12 and a bit minutes to go. James Guess in the Aston Martin, still 2nd in Group GTH at the moment, but he's had a busy old race, as he's never really been able to relax at any point, has he, as yet, James Guess?
No, he's been under pressure the whole time, and it looks like, unfortunately, the Greystone McLaren of Carter has just dropped off the back of this group a little bit. He was right in the mix, and this last couple of laps has not been able to keep on the coattails of the BMW ahead, but he's now falling into the clutches of one of the other, I think that's the Paddock Motorsport.
It is, yeah, it's Tim Docker, isn't it? Yeah, so yeah, Phil Carter dropping into the clutches of Tim Docker's car. Tim, who we've seen out racing things like Volkswagen Racing Cup many years ago, Tim Docker, but has partnered up again for the rest of this season with Jordan Albert, who will be sharing that car with him. This is the Group GTC leading car, so this is the Top Cats Racing Lamborghini, Charlotte Gilbert. She would, so far this season, largely have been sharing a car with husband Warren Gilbert, but it's another Gilbert instead we've got, isn't it? Gilbert Yates, who joins that car for this one.
Yeah, all the Gilberts in that Lamborghini. It's a great looking car. We've said it before, but I just think it looks stunning, doesn't it? Those Lamborghini Group GTC cars, the true Super Trofeo cars, they're mean, they're fast, they're hard to drive, and especially with that livery on.
They look aggressive even when they're not moving,
yes.
And they sound gorgeous. I mean, all GT cars sound gorgeous, but I think the Lamborghini's probably up there with being one of my favourites.
Absolutely got to be up there. We love the roar of those, and also just coming through shot there is the flat six.
Flat six Porsche.
Yeah, which also sounds great. And another thing that we love about GT racing is you get so much variety in not only looks and speed, but also sounds as well.
Well, it's a bit like, Formula 1 years ago, whether it was a V10, a V12 or a V8 engine, they all sounded different, and it's the same. We get this still in sports car racing, don't we? They all make a subtly different sound. So, yeah, that's what we like about it. And the fact that we've got such wonderful colours of the cars, the liveries very well thought out on the vast majority of these cars, and that Lamborghini absolutely pops in the sunshine, doesn't it?
Oh, it really, really does. Even in the cloudy day, that's going to stand out, isn't it? And I love the choice of colours, and Top Cats Racing doing a great job of keeping that car clearly well prepared, because Gilbert's doing very well to stay at the front of that group.
Yep, well, at the moment, she's not that far off the coattails of the man from Belfast, which is going to be Seamus Jennings. However, Charlotte Gilbert is now getting caught by the McLaren 720S of Ian Logie, who was a little bit squirry again there, coming out of Brundle and Nelson. So he's pushing hard. And again, that's beyond the curb line there, Ian Logie, so he just needs to maybe rein it back a bit. But all of a sudden, that car seems as though it's running absolutely fine again.
Yeah, it seems like an intermittent issue because he's romped onto the back of Charlotte Gilbert there, whereas a lap or so ago was struggling to stay ahead of the other Lamborghini, which is a similar pace car in the different group. And yeah, you can see the air restrictors taken off that GT3 car really allow it to fly down the straights, because those Trofeo cars are ordinarily a bit faster down the straights.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they are usually from a GT3 car, but yeah, that car is. Oh, and again, Ian Logie beyond the curb line there. He's going to start to pick up warnings if he's not careful. Yeah, that is a GT3 McLaren, but for this weekend it runs in Group GTO. And if you're wondering what the technicalities are on that, the GT3 cars all have their performance balanced, that they're all absolutely pretty much identical, regardless of whether it's front-engined, rear-engined, normally aspirated, forced induction, whether it's a V10, a V8, a V12, a flat 6. But what they've done in that McLaren is they've taken all the air restrictors off it. That also means that they can change the ride height on the car as well. They can alter lambda sensings on it, and therefore, because it now doesn't comply with GT3, because they've thrown away the technical book, it runs in GTO because it's got more power now.
Yeah, of course, those those McLarens 720Ss, of course, are quite heavily restricted because the car and road trim actually has a lot more power than the GT3 regulations allow. So take those restrictors off and they absolutely fly, and it looks like Ian Logie is pushing that car very hard now. He's clearly out there enjoying himself.
Very much so, yeah. There's Ian Logie. James Guest just leaves enough room for Hugo Cook to squeeze his way through. That will please Hugo, because I think he's slowly edging back up onto the coattails of Tom Roach. The gap is down to just around about a second from first to second place, so Tom Roach maybe not getting as smooth a run through the traffic, or isn't quite as confident, or doesn't want to take as many risks, whatever it might be, through the traffic. So the lead advantage is closing up. James Wallace is still trying to carve his way through the traffic. He dives up the inside of John Curry's Mercedes as those two head round through Agostini, and then from there he's going to have to wait until the exit of Hamilton before he can pick off the BMW of Chris Murphy. Should do that on the exit of Hamilton and get past it in towards a braking area for Oggies. So James Wallace, another place gained, but I think he's now losing touches, and he was 3 3/4 seconds adrift of the pair ahead, and I think he's lost further time through the middle sector of this lap as the race leader heads down the bottom of the Bentley Straight on lap number 10.
That's a good place to pass the Group GTH cars there on the back straight. Those GT3 cars being much faster in a straight line. You saw Wallace having to sort of check up and follow single file through the middle sector, and that middle sector is mostly single file, especially sort of the Hamilton Oggies section into the corner onto the back straight, because it's quite narrow, it's quite technical, left right, and I was about to say that it was single file through there, but James Wallace sent it around the outside of that Group GTO BMW.
So Chris Murphy slowly picking off the Group GTH cars now, so he's had a bit of a strange race, hasn't he, Chris Murphy? He's been behind them, then ahead of them, then dropped back behind. Now he's ahead of all of them again, which means that, yeah, the battle for second and for third in Group GTH can concentrate his efforts. Philip Carter and Tim Docker are beginning to close up as well, so over the start-finish line comes the BMW of Chris Murphy. He's 14th, but the 4 cars behind him are all fighting for second, third, fourth and fifth in Group GTH at the moment. However, they're about to be caught by some of the front runners, because the next of the front runners that's going to catch them is going to be the BMW, isn't it, of 4th place, Darren Leung. There is number 77. Now, that we are used to seeing as being Marcus Clutton partnered up really with Morgan Tilbrook, but Morgan is busy with business this weekend. So Matt Topham, who was the Pro-Am champion in GT4 last year in the British GT Championship when he was partnered up with long-time Works Aston Martin driver Darren Turner, is making his debut in a GT3 car, and he's going really well, isn't he, at the wheel of that 77 McLaren?
I bet he's absolutely loving it out there. It's the step up from GT4 to GT3 is not massive, but it's definitely a step, and those cars will handle a lot more differently. But it's just the same but more, isn't it? It's more power, more grip, more aero,
more brakes. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
The GT3 cars are fairly beastly these days.
I think it's the aero, isn't it, in the GT3 that's the thing that you've really got to get your head around and think, yeah, it will do it. It's counterintuitive because your brain is telling you that it won't.
And it's still a pretty big and heavy cars, those GT3. I would say heavy in relative terms. They're not heavy compared to a road car, but as a racing car, they're a full car and they weigh over a ton, but you have got that aero to just help you in, for example, in the braking into Brundle, into there and into Nelson. You can really hit the brakes, but then you'll have to bleed off, whereas in a GT4 car, you'll have to roll onto the brakes and maybe hold them at constant pressure until you start to turn in, whereas you almost have to adopt a more hybrid single-seater versus a sort of a traditional GT style braking, which will be taking a while to get used to. But yeah, as you said, just taking to it like a duck, taking to, you know what I meant, duck and water. You can figure the rest out.
Taking to it like a duck to water.
There we go.
Easy for you to say. Right, 5 minutes to go. Over the start-finish line they go, with Tom Roach still leading the way by 2 3/4 seconds. The battle for second, for third and for fourth in Group GTH for the moment is all sort of interrupted as the front runners are all carving their way through and past in their Group GT3 cars. Ian Loggie's still going well as well, so bearing in mind he started off the back of the grid and went into the pit lane, so you can argue it's a pit lane start. It's slowing down again then, wasn't it, the McLaren?
Yeah, visibly slower through there, and you can see the Porsche catching up at the back through Coram, which is normally a very fast corner and nearly on the limit. You wouldn't be able to catch up that much under normal situations, but then he's going again.
Really strange.
I'm not sure what's going on there.
Either way, it's been a good drive, because from the back of the grid or a pit lane start, whatever you want, up to 7th position now, and that's with a car that still just appears to have a few little niggles about it, whatever they are.
Yes, and still pushing on hard when the car is working. Wow, that is a lot of commitment through the first corner, because that is, we've seen so many times in so many different series. You drop a wheel on the exit of Rich's the first corner there in the wrong way, and you're one-way ticket to the barrier on the inside of the circuit. We've seen that in GB3 last year with Callum Boyson.
Well, he was the same on the exit of the Wilson hairpin, then all over the curb on the exit. The car was squirming around under acceleration, so I don't think Ian Loggie is leaving a great deal on the table. I think the only thing that's hampering him is whatever the car is doing at the moment. So 3 and a bit minutes to go. Our Group GTC leader is still Charlotte Gilbert, still doing a brilliant job in 8th position overall. And she has managed to put a reasonable amount of daylight between herself now and Patrick Collins at the wheel of the Porsche. There was about 7.5 seconds between the pair of them, so the Lamborghini comfortably leading Group GTC at this stage of the race.
Yeah, we've just seen that over the line there's been a call for track limits warning for our leading GT3 car. That is Tom Roach. He's actually got a warning, so he leaves the circuit many more times, he could be looking at a penalty, and he's only got a 2.5 second gap, so a 5 second penalty for a third infringement would put him into currently 2nd place.
Yeah, got to be careful, haven't you? If he's had the warning, then you don't get another warning. That's the way it works. Hugo Cook there also, yes, probably just beyond the curb line as well, with the contact patch just rolling about half of the tyre width beyond the red and white painted curb. So Hugo Cook is pushing the limits of the rules, pushing the limits of the officials probably as well. And, you know, these are the new rules. We've all, like them or not, those are the new rules that Motorsport UK have introduced. How easy it is to officiate against them, I feel sorry for the officials as well, because it's that is Matt Topham, we're saying, he's doing such a brilliant job, and he's looped it. That's coming out of Agostini, isn't it, where one would imagine he's either got on the throttle too quickly or he's maybe got unsettled on the curb, but pointing in the wrong direction. Quick spin back round, no harm done, place is lost, he'll get going.
Yes, a bit of dirt on the tyre as well, take a while to get those clean. Unfortunately, the damage is done, and it looks like you're just pointing at the tyre marks on the road there, Mark.
They started on the curb line, so yeah, I think he's probably gone beyond the curb line. It's unsettled the car as he's still on the gas, and it's fired him.
Yeah, I think the changes to the track limit regulations are probably the right thing to do. It makes it easy to officiate, and it makes it easy to see whether someone's left track limits. But you mentioned earlier, it'll take a while to get used to, but imagine making yourself quite unpopular, being telling on everyone here, Mark, on the stream, you know what they say about snitches.
The problem is that they don't listen to it because they're in the car, so it should be all right. But if they listen to it in the lunch break, I'm in trouble this afternoon. Minute and a half to go. Tom Roach is just working his way out of Palmer. It's because the cameras are so well positioned, that's the problem. And has the lead advantage come down? Well, it was literally bang on 2 seconds at the start of the lap, but to the naked eye, I think that might just have come down a little bit. They've also got some traffic to deal with as well, which is going to be Matty Evans at the wheel of his Lamborghini that is just up the road. So the Woodrow Motorsport Lamborghini, that, remember, is 2nd overall in the championship standings, is just about to get caught by Tom Roach, who is going to go on the curbs on the outside of him coming out of Williams. And that is less than ideal, I would say, the way that overtake was done.
Yeah, it looks like he's lost a lot of time there, and that was an optimistic move, trying to sneak away around the outside of Williams, which is a corner where you're pretty much committed by the time you turn in. So did well not to actually end up off the circuit more than he did. So good awareness from the Lamborghini there, but looks like it's still just going to be enough of a gap for him to be able to maintain the lead.
Yep, well, it looks as though Tom Roach is going to win the race on the road. Hugo Cook is going to finish in second place, but they're just about to thread their way through Murray's for the final time. Are we going to get another lap in? Do you think Tom Roach can get over the start-finish line before the clock ticks to 0? I think he might, you know. Let's have a quick look. Yes, he does, by 2 seconds. No, checkered flag does go out. Checkered flag does go out, so they didn't quite squeeze the extra lap in. Tom Roach claims the win on the road in round 9 of the 2023 GT Cup Championship from Hugo Cook, who's there in second position. Just need to wait for James Wallace to come through in third place, but James Wallace is looking as though he has come into the pit lane at the end of that lap. So not sure whether our cameras will be able to pick up on that, but I don't think James Wallace has taken the checkered flag.
Oh no, that is disappointing, and maybe he'll be able to go. But yeah, so he's going to go past the start-finish line. Will he maintain third place? No, it's dropped down to, by the looks of it, 5th position. He's on the exit of pit road. He should have crossed the start-finish line anyway, so he'll still be in the top 5. But that's a strange occurrence there. Potentially something wrong with the car. I'm not sure. But anyway, interesting finish to the race. But it wasn't an easy race for Tom Roach at the front. There was definitely pressure throughout, but managed to hold off just until the end.
Yep, so not a bad drive also. Whatever was going wrong with the car for Ian Logie, he is going to come through. And still over the start-finish line, 2nd, 3rd, 4th in Group GTH, still together, James Guest, John Curry, and then the car thereafter, which is going to be Phil Carter, isn't it? So Philip Carter at the wheel of the number 14 McLaren 570S GT4. So, yeah, for Ian Logie, where is he going to finish? He is going to finish, I think, in 8th place he's showing as being at the moment. He has got himself ahead of Seamus Jennings on this lap though, so that should put him 7th, and with James Wallace having come into the pit lane, that actually puts him 6th by the look of things, because James Wallace, because it hasn't taken the checkered flag and broken the loop, still tumbling down the order for the moment.
Yeah,
so we'll have to wait and see on that.
I'm sure that car will probably be classified, because there is a start-finish line in the pit lane. It probably just hasn't picked up for
picked the loop up, yeah.
Yeah, so there might be an amends to those exact results, but yeah, interesting. Will be good to hear what's happened to that car and why they came into the pits in the last lap.
Yeah, clearly something was not quite right. Conversations going on between Marshall and James Wallace, and we will await confirmation of that. I'll probably be able to bring you an update later on this afternoon when the official results are issued, but what we can do at the moment is we can guide you through the order that they were in at the point that the checkered flag came out, and that will account for whatever has happened for James Wallace, so he's going to be further down on the results. So let's give you the results then for round 9 of the 2023 GT Cup Championship. It's a win on the road for Tom Roach in the McLaren, with Hugo Cook's Audi there in 2nd place, and the BMW of Darren Leung 3rd in the end, with Mark Ratcliffe's McLaren there in 4th place. Matt Topham, despite the spin, finished in 5th place, and Seamus Jennings was there in 6th place. Ian Logie down to 7th, so there might have been some sort of post-race penalty issued for track limits possibly for Ian Logie, because he crossed the line ahead of the Porsche, but is showing in the results down back past it. So he is there in 7th place. 8th place, and the winner of Group GTC was Charlotte Gilbert. In 9th place was Patrick Collins, and James Wallace showing as 10th in the end, as that car came into the pit lane and didn't take the checkered flag trackside. Matty Evans was there in 11th place, with Paul Bailey in 12th, and winning Group GTH is going to be the car of Chris Hart, who was there in 13th place. Chris Murphy was 14th, ahead of James Guest, John Curry and Phil Carter, who all in 15th, 16th and 17th had a brilliant battle in Group GTH, and Tim Docker in 18th was never far away either. Doc Bush finishes there in 19th place, and it's going to be David Frankland that wraps up the top 20.